Last year, the Seattle Philharmonic opened its season with a concert entitled Music's Darkest Harvest. And it was a concert of very festive fare, including Rachmaninoff's Isle of the Dead, the Dance of Death by Franz Liszt, Edward Elgar's orchestration of Chopin's Funeral March, a very lighthearted, whimsical program. And to our delight, the audience for this concert was quite large, and so we decided that we would do a different take on a similar theme to open this season. And so evolved Danses, plural, Macabres, an American look at Halloween, in spite of the French subtitle. And the way the concert sort of evolved was trying to find several different American looks at things that were a little darker, or maybe to impose a little darkness on an extant work. A piece that I've wanted to do for a long, long time is a symphonic suite from Bernard Herrmann's only Oscar-winning score, The Devil and Daniel Webster. It was the second film that he ever scored. It came right after Citizen Kane. And the score is typical of Herrmann's mastery of orchestration, of his juggling of themes in very adroit ways. One of the things that makes it stand out amongst Herrmann's other scores is that there's quite a lot of quotation in this score. Usually his scores were made up of his own original material. But in trying to summon up this New England atmosphere from quite a long time ago, he used several American folk songs. One of them is On Springfield Mountain, which he uses in several ways depending on the mood of the scene that he was underscoring. For example, in one part, he scores it with the most discordant, unpleasant accompaniment he can. The muted trumpets are belting out the theme, while under them comes this series of very unpleasant chords. Almost can't make out. So great is the harmonic tension. On the other hand, at another point in the score, he turns it into something absolutely tranquil and lush and beautiful. So he gives you this. One of the things that happened as this concert evolved was I ended up picking two works that shared a theme. We're going to be doing a performance of Copland's Four Dances from Rodeo. And the hoedown is certainly the best-known movement therefrom, if only because of its use by the beef industry on nationwide TV 30 or so years ago. But everybody knows the hoedown. It's the one that goes... Well, a little later on in the same movement, Copland quotes from a very, very famous traditional American square dance tune known as McLeod's Reel. You can find several wonderful fiddle-in arrangements of it on YouTube. In its original version, it goes something like... And Copland's use of it goes something like this. Etc. Herrmann uses the same theme, but in a very, very strange way. The third movement of the suite from The Devil and Daniel Webster is called Sleigh Ride. And if you were to take out the ghoulish element that he injects into it, it would sound like a very cheerful sleigh ride because you have a lot of metallic percussion and a whip. indicating the jingling of the sleigh and the driver's flicking of the whip to get the horses to go faster. And in the upper woodwinds, you have but down below is this horrible, moaning four-note theme from the low woodwinds. So when you put them together, you get not the happiest of sleigh rides. The suite does have a happy ending, however, in which the devil has been duly beaten in a trial by Daniel Webster, and even though he does steal a homemade pie as one final gesture of defiance, he has been effectively ejected from the New England community to go do some mayhem elsewhere. The spirit of Aaron Copland hovers very, very benignly over this concert. Not only are we doing his suite from Rodeo, but in some way or other, he touched the lives of all of the other composers on this concert. Bernard Herrmann was actually a member of the school of composers that clustered around Copland in their early days, and they'd get together at Copland's apartment and play through everybody's works and offer their critiques and suggestions. Morton Gould conducted Copland's music on very, very frequent occasions and made a recording of both Billy the Kid and Rodeo, which is still regarded as both great performance and a great audiophile recording. Gail Kubik, whose music for dancing we're going to perform, was singled out by Aaron Copland as one of the American composers who really made a palpable difference in the quality of film scores. Gail wrote quite a few of them. Probably his most famous was for the cartoon Gerald McBoing Boing, a delightful cartoon with a text by Dr. Seuss. There were also several feature films for which he wrote the score, including most famously The Desperate Hours with Frederick March and Humphrey Bogart. Michael Moore, the current board president of the Seattle Philharmonic, came to me and asked if I would contribute a work to this American Halloween concert. He said, you know, so long as it's 10 to 15 minutes in length and sort of fits the Halloween mood, you are free to do whatever you want. And it seemed to me that the best place to turn first would be to my old friend Edgar Allan Poe, whose stories and poetry I've been reading since I was 8 or 9 years old. And I found a poem of his entitled Spirits of the Dead. And according to all the research that I've done, this is not a poem that has yet been afforded any kind of musical treatment, either as a song or as a narration with orchestra or some other instrumental combination. And the more I read it, the more it started suggesting music to me. And so I finally decided that I would do a setting of it for narrator and symphony orchestra. The scoring turned out to be brass, some percussion, and strings, all instruments which can in some way or other be muted or played in a way that dampens their sound, because I really wanted the opening and closing of the work to sound as muffled and, well, underground, if you will, as it could. There is a section where one by one all of the instruments remove their mutes for what I hope is a rather horrific climax, but then everything subsides again into the silence of the tomb. I did prepare a glossary for the members of the orchestra. As you know, the traditional language in which expression marks in music are written is Italian. And so I tried to make most of the performance directions in Italian. I did have to consult my Italian dictionary for some of these. But because most of these were words that I was pretty sure the orchestra wouldn't have encountered before, I came up with this glossary. So in case this gives you some idea of the sorts of demands I'm making on my players, I will share with you some of these Italian words and their translations. Scomporre, decomposing. Insidioso, insidious. I'm sure you couldn't guess that one. Sgradevole, unpleasant. Ribolito, seething. Spaventoso, frightening, dreadful. Piangendo e gridare, crying and screaming. And possibly my favorite one, selvaggiamente, savagely. These are some of the ways that my dear Philharmonic musicians have been implored by me to play their instruments in order to give the character of the music that I've written for Poe's poem. Naturally, I hope that it has an effect on its audience. I cannot say that it is the most uplifting, joyous music that I've ever written. Far from it. I let Poe lead me by the nose and dictate what sort of music his poem seemed to want. I hope I've responded accordingly. Let me know what you think.